Thank you for tuning in today. What I'm going to do, I always say a short video, but it usually ends up being longer than we think. But I want to make sure that I explain everything in thorough for beginners, and that's what this is basically for. And like I mentioned before, there's nothing refined about these videos or anything. It's just I'm wanting to explain mainly to the beginners, but people that's been doing it and maybe are switching to this system, maybe a few little tricks or something that could be done different. What I'm going to explain to is installing inspection rings, and I'm going to get a little bit to the basics here for the beginners. You know, when people talk about an inspection ring, once you cover an airplane in fabric, well, also a metal airplane if it's riveted together in places, but to be able to do repairs or do inspections or do something inside, you have to have a way to get inside the fabric, but you don't want to do a destructive, portion to get in there. So what we install is what we call inspection covers, and it's just basically a metal type cover that has clips on the back. And what these inspection rings are is a piece of plastic that I'll show you how we install them in, and the way I like to put them in is when we're covering the plane, and I'll show you the whole procedure. I have seen planes to where they just glued only that on, and I did annuals on planes where this was glued on and then it was painted over. It looks fine. I'm just always apprehensive about just a ring being glued on. I like to have that, what we call a dolly, or a large reinforcement piece over there, and that's just an extra bridging it in, because the way these are installed, they got these little clips, and you'll see some with a 4-clip, or you'll see the dome ones that pop, inside out. When you've cut out your hole to do whatever inspection you're taking care of, and when you cut this out to put this in, this part of the lip is going to slip under one side, and then you're going to slide it back to the other, and it's kind of indented, and then usually painted the same color as a plane, and that keeps it in place. I have seen times that we'd have situations that we might have I have seen some Cubs and stuff that may have the brake line have a fitting right here on the belly, and they want this to stay a little bit more sturdy in a place. What we'll sometimes do is cut us a piece of metal and let that be the reinforcement ring, and we do glue it down and put it in the same way with the dolly. But that gives you a metal part that, say you're wanting to, when you put the inspection ring in, that you're wanting to put maybe 3 little number 4 or number 6 screws just to keep that in place. You can take and drill a little hole, and this plastic will hold like a number 4 screw if you got one that's just wanting to move around, or say you have a stripe that goes through one and you're constantly seeing it get out of line and not looking just right. It won't take but one little number 4 screw to keep that straight. But with that behind us, what I'll talk about is putting these on. This is a piece, I just grabbed this, it was a piece that I've got stretched out for doing the test. We have to test our glue for our PMA every time we get a batch in, and I just covered this part because I usually don't need all of this to do it, so I figured I'd just put an inspection ring down here on this lower end. And what I'm using, this is just 102 fabric. What I'm using is the lightweight fabric, or the uncertified, the really lightweight stuff. You can take the regular fabric that you covered your wing with or whatever and cut them out and do it in it also. Works just as good. You're going to do the same process basically as we did when we put the tapes on. It's going to be 2 coats of thin, 1 more coat, putting it in the wet, and then laying a wet in, then another 1 or 2, however much you think that's going to take to fill the weave or have it to where you need it. What I like to do is have this reinforcement just a little bit bigger. And there's no rhyme or reason. Just I like to be at least 1 inch or so bigger than this. And what really works well around here, I'll just grab one of the snap lids, the armor lock lids that we put on the paint when we send it on the gallon paint. That's about the right size to be a little larger. And what I normally do is just use one of those and just get you a pencil, number 2 pencil, and mark that out. Now that'll be our inspection ring cover or dolly. Next thing I'm going to talk about is drain grommets. for the beginners, the drain grommets, all of your ailerons, your tail feathers, the wings, every little area is in the very, when it's setting 3-point or on the nose where the lowest points, you'll want some type of a tiny hole as a drain, because there'll be moisture, condensation, possibly get in the airplane, and you want a place for the air and the moisture and even if any water was to get in it to come out. I see many times, and I've done it before, on the trailing edge, when you put the tape down, that's double fabric, you got glue and everything, you can just punch a little hole or burn a little hole, and that usually will never go anywhere, and it'll do fine. But these first little round grommets are basically just plastic, flat, and I've seen them in metal too. They're just a flat little washer there that we're going to put in the same way we're going to put in this dolly, and it's just going to have a little piece of fabric on. I've seen these glued on the outside and painted over also. If you really glue them on good, they'll be fine, but then I have seen them peel off. Now you've got a raw piece of fabric. This kind is what you call a seaplane grommet. And basically what it is, if it's under the wing or whatever, it's got a little scoop that you point to the back. And I believe the reason the seaplane part of it is, you know, when you've seen a plane land on the water, water's going everywhere and splashing up on everything. And they're not wanting water to splash right up in that hole and get water in there. It's not going to be the end of the world, but let's just say it's a wood airplane or got a wood spar and stuff, and you don't want water in there. And a lot of times we put these on wheel planes that we know are not going to, they're not going to ever have floats on them, but I just think they look cool, especially people that had never seen them before, and you put these on. So basically those are the two situations, and we'll put them, I'll put one of them on for you too here. So what I use on these, I just found this a while ago, and it's about the right size. That's just a little bit bigger than that, so I'll just cut one out and the size of that, and I'll call that the one for this drain grommet here. All right, we'll go ahead and stop the video. Since we shut the last video off, what I did was mark out my doily there, and I cut one for this. And then what I normally do, this is not exactly perfect, but you know, that kind of gives you an idea about the size. And you can get your first template. What I normally do is just kind of mark out my perimeters. You usually can fold these over about in half and just take your straight scissor and cut the little angle in there and get it about where they're going to do all right and be that shape right there. That was a little pointed on the back, but you get the idea. At this point, I'm not going to do it. I don't even have a iron out here or with a punch, but you'd want to put your hole in here where these tap right here. You wouldn't have to worry about it till you're completely done. Then you could put the hole in it, and this is just that plastic reinforcement, but can't hardly get your hole in there like you want it, you know, with that scoop over the top of it. So at this point, you'd want to burn your hole in. Just like the tapes, 3-to-1. Mixture on the glue. I've got 2 thin coats. I'm going to put one more thin, but before that, like I said, I mark these, and I've got 2 coats of thin, and I went on ahead. You can usually eyeball it, but I went on ahead and laid this in and put the mark for the ring. Before we glue the doily down, go around here. And like I said, on the outside, remember on the Airtech, you have to try to be just a little neater, because you don't want a lot of glue out on this open weave that you're going to have to deal with later with your primer. But go ahead and wet that area where this is going to set. And then this has a rounded top and a flat side. Go to your flat side and put you a little coat of the thin all the way around. And you know, it doesn't matter if it's kind of dripping on it or whatever. And then before it dries, go ahead and lay it right in that you put down. And just take it, and you know, sometimes you can kind of do a little twist to it, but most time it'll try to stick pretty quick. So just kind of hold it down all the way around. And you know, you can see through it. You know, there'll be a little place or two that might, you know, look like a little hollow point, but if you've got enough a glue bed laying down and enough put on it, it's gonna fill in okay. Same way with with this one. Like I said, I haven't cut the hole, so we're just not going to do that on this one, but let's go ahead and wet that. Wet the bottom of that. I'm just going to eyeball it down on the top. See, I made a little mess right there. When you do, just go ahead and go ahead and wipe it. Just don't let it stand on top of that fabric and get dry. Normally you can wipe it, and if you make a very big one, you can take a little bit of reducer and a rag, and that'll, all you're doing is with the reducer and the rag is thinning that glue a little bit and sending it that way into the fabric. That way your fabric weave will be at the top and it won't be standing up. It's not going to hurt anything to kind of what I call washing it on down into the fabric so that your top doesn't have that glue surface. Looking down on the top, just kind of get that centered. And usually you'll wait a little bit. Usually I just go on across the wing. You know, we're kind of rushing all this. But you'll want to go on across the wing and let that kind of set up. We'll go ahead and press this and see if we can go ahead and just keep the camera rolling. At this point, you're going to lay that next coat of thin, just like the one you laid right before you put your reinforcement tapes down. And this is going to be the wet one that you lay it in on. It doesn't hurt to be real liberal with the glue at this point. This is your last coat before you put it on. And what I like to do is just creep up on the bottom side till your lines look about right. Now your first reaction is I'm going to wipe it in. But if you do that, you're going to get these bridged areas. So what I do is take this center part, work from the very center, and work your way out. Because like I said, this plastic thing is about a 32nd of an inch tall. And by working this in this inside crease, I'm pulling the fabric in to do that. Where if you stuck it out here, now it can't pull, and you got this bridged area in between there. And you know, it's just something that I like to try to make them look nice when they're on the plane, because a lot of these may not get cut out till the first annual, or some of them may be in a position it's not even required during the annual. So you want them, you know, to set in there real flat. When you cut it out, all this is going to get cut out anyhow, but I like for it to set in there real tight. Before the glue dries, you work it on the top. Then I like to come around this outside area and bring it in and try to get the fabric to come right down in that little crease there. And we're still pulling fabric in. We have, you know, it's set in the glue out here a little bit, and you know, you just can't hardly keep it from doing that. But I like to pull it all the way in. A lot of times at this point, I usually don't do it, but you can set your iron, you know, maybe at 250 or something, and you can kind of, what I call breaking that backbone. Just taking that iron, that tip, just going around there real lightly right in that crease, and that heat will go ahead and set that down in the corner. Most of the time, if it's wet enough, I don't have a problem with it. I notice there's a little thing, and I didn't mention that. The vendor that we have make these for us, every one of them's got a little tiny little peck, and I didn't take that off there. Just take your X-Acto knife. On one side of all of them, they got a little tiny peck. I don't know if that's where they cut them off from manufacturing or exactly what it is, but you finish it on out, just working out all of the wrinkles to the outside. And once you get it down flat, and you can tell it's already kind of drying under there, so at this point you come around, and when you're completely done, any little wrinkle you have, you can take an iron and kind of work with it, because you know, there is, by going all the way around that, it is kind of creating what I call a kind of a compound, maybe not a compound curve, but it's kind of a, you know, pulling all the way around like that. It may try to pull a place that wants to try to wrinkle, and you just have no place to go with it. We wet it in with this one, and I'm not going to go all the way through with this, but when this dries, you'll come back just like you did your tapes with 2 more coats of thin. All of this looks pretty good. Right here, there's just a little bubble, you know, and I can take my finger and kind of work that out. You just have to be careful not to push a bunch of glue out on the edge, but you'll see if it's any hollow place, it'll be a kind of a white white place showing, you know, a hollow place. But that one looks pretty good, and once it dries, it'd be pretty even. The same way on this one. I usually just come in here, and you know, on a smaller brush actually work better for this. I'm gonna try to kind of speeding it along. We're not worried as much about neatness if it's on a customer's plane, but I usually I just let glue kind of get over that whole thing. Just lay that in. And this is the little fine points when you're done. You want that glue to kind of be fairly deep around the edges where you don't have a raw edge of a fabric, and then when you paint it, you got your nice shiny paint everywhere and you got a little hollow spots. You want that to kind of fill in. Same way we're going around this. This thing's kind of raised. Take your little popsicle stick or something. Go all the way around that. Bring that slack into that piece just like that. And then work the rest of it down. And like I said, you can take an iron, you know, usually at the end. You can see when I come around that, it's kind of taking up a little slack and still pulling it in. And then you'll put another coat on that, let it dry. Just like the tapes, when it's completely dry and done, you've got all your coats on. This little edge around here is going to be rough. And don't remember the little tip there that's on it. You can see it right through the fabric there. I just missed that. And take that iron, just fan those tips out all the way around. And any little, you know, a lot of times if you got a little place, you can, now if you get the iron going too much, you can reactivate the glue and make it come loose. And then it'll stretch the fabric and it'll bridge that area. So, you know, when the plane's completely painted, at this point, for the beginners, this is where you would, you know, just cut out that center part. Inspection lays right in there. Don't forget to iron these down really smooth. Our 1030 primer has really well filling qualities and stuff. And like you said, if you want that look, where you're just burying the tapes, that's fine. But this edge is not going to show like what you think it will. It'll just like any other part of the wing. And we always like using this style, but it'll set in there, and that double fabric there just gives it a little bit of an edge, especially the dome style. It's just almost like a little sharp edge is constantly sitting around that. So that's basically the way I put them on, and I'm sure there's other ways. I've heard a couple of customers talk about putting inspection rings on the bottom of the wing before they put the top cover on, and the inspection rings are on the inside of the wing. And I don't know, I haven't really been around that very much, but you know, I would think that your inspection plate, you know, you don't have that extra fabric on the outside. I've never been around that process, but I've heard it mentioned 2 or 3 times. This is just the way we always put them on. And with that, I guess that'll be it. Thank you.